Afternoon. Welcome to Family Health Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we are live here in the studio on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. We are here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30. So I invite you to join us. Come here because we do believe that the health of our families do matter. I have with me today in the studio two of my friends and associate professors at from ECU College of Nursing are here. And I have Dr. Allison Swift.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Allison, for being here. And Dr. Madeline Hernandez.
Thank you, Wendy, for having us.
Thank you so much for being here. And we're going to give them an opportunity to just tell a little bit about themselves in just a few minutes. But we're going to let you guys know what our topic for today is. And today we're going to be looking at infertility. And we're going to be talking about that and giving some definitions about infertility and some myths that people have about it, how it can cause stress in your life. Sometimes this is a difficult conversation to have, but I do believe it's one that's needed. And so that's why we have these two professionals here. They've done some research about this, and they're going to be sharing some of their findings and hopefully helping us maneuver through this discussion on this afternoon. So, Allison and Madeline, I want you guys to just take a few minutes and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how this topic is important to you.
Okay. Well, hello again, and I am a three-time ECU graduate, and my last time I graduated was in 2020 with my PhD in nursing, and my research area is focused on women with infertility and pregnancy loss. And so this is a very important topic to me. I became interested in this topic through my own personal experiences with infertility and pregnancy loss. So this is a topic that, again, it's very important to me personally, and that I find ways to help shed light on this and help find ways to help others that are also going through the experience.
Awesome. Madeline.
Yes, well, I got my doctorate at the University of Miami. I've been a nurse now since 2014, and am a women's health nurse practitioner as well. And now I've been, since July of last year, working here at East Carolina University as an assistant professor. And just like Allison, come to be interested in this topic and do research on it as well. From personal experience, from always having a passion for women's health in general, but as mostly driven through my own personal experience of fear of infertility and pregnancy loss.
Okay. All right. So I must say, from the professional part, you're experts in this, and from your personal lives. So hopefully so we look forward to you sharing some information. So Allison, I'm gonna let you start off. And if you want to just maybe give us a definition of infertility, and then maybe sort of tell us a little bit about how that plays into maybe if you want to share a little bit about your experience.
Okay. So infertility is really defined in a couple different ways. So if you are younger than 35, it's the inability to conceive or carry a pregnancy after a year. And if you're older than 35, that time decreases to 6 months. So there is a difference there based on age. There is also primary infertility, which is where people have infertility that have never had children. And there's also secondary infertility, which is where somebody may have had a child already, it could be 1, 2, 3, or however many, and now that they're experiencing infertility. And so it's really just as common. Those two different types, primary and secondary, are really equally common. And I think that's one thing that I really wanted to point out today, because so many people think, oh, it's just when I can't have a baby, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can have infertility even after having children before. So I wanted to make sure that you understood that that is also possible, because I do think sometimes people don't think
so
about
give us an example of that.
Yeah, so if somebody has already had a child already, and they now that they are trying to get pregnant again, and now they're having trouble getting pregnant and they can't, and they've had, depending on their age again, a year, maybe it's been a year since they've been trying, they haven't been able to get pregnant. That would be secondary
Okay.
infertility. And I also want to give a shout out while we're talking about this. This is National Infertility Awareness Week this week. So this conversation is a really good time to have it. So I appreciate you having us on.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. And I've had some friends and some family members who is now dealing with this, and also just trying to figure out, is it the right time, or is it me, or what's going on? So can you guys speak to that as far as what determines whether or not you're considered not being able to be fertile or infertility? Either one of you guys.
All right, I can start. Well, there's a lot of tests that can be done to determine that. And first and foremost, I would recommend visiting an OBGYN provider so that you can get that process started, especially if it's been, like Allison said, 12 full months consecutively trying to get pregnant, to conceive, and you've been unsuccessful. Usually what the providers might start you off with is some blood tests to check out how your hormones are, hormone levels. And I recommend also that your partner getting some screening done with a sperm and sperm count and things like that, because it's just as much as a women's issue as it is the man's issue. Sometimes, society likes to say that it's mostly women that, we tend to think it's the woman's issue. And a lot of times it could really be your partner's, sperm qualities or sperm count. And some of these things are easily fixed, depending on what is found after all these tests are done, whether it's medication or just, kind of relaxing, making sure your partner's, wearing loose fit clothing, because the sperm is actually affected by heat.
Uh-huh.
So simple things that you might be able to do, and lo and behold, you get pregnant right away as soon as you try again. But I would definitely recommend starting out, speaking to your provider, making sure you've told them everything you've tried already, and then that will help them decide on what the next step should be.
Okay, great. So, and you made a good point when you were just talking about the simple things.
Mm-hmm.
So elaborate a little bit more on those things that somebody who has decided that, they've been married and they've done what they feel like they wanted to do before they started a family, and now they're ready and they have been trying, but haven't been successful. So you mentioned a little bit about just the clothing part. So
Yes.
Can you share anything else about that?
Sure. Allison, do you want to cover some of the causes?
Yeah, so I do want to, while we're sort of talking about this, just also talk about how common infertility is.
Okay.
And so it really is. 1 in 8 couples in the United States have infertility. And so,
See, and I don't mean to cut you off, but that is great to say, because some people think that I'm in the world all by myself and it's just me. So good.
That's right. And some of it may be just because nobody really talks about it that
Mhm.
much. And so people feel very isolated in that. But so it is very common. And even globally, it's 1 in 6.
Oh,
So again, it's a huge problem. And I think that, again, just the common, if you're in a big room and you've got a lot of people and you look around, and chances of somebody else in that room also going through the same experience as you is very common and very
Probably
possible.
your own family too.
Exactly. Your own
Yeah.
family, your own friends.
Mhm.
So, and it's also interesting, even in the last 30 years, fertility rates in the United States have continued to decline for various reasons, but I think that's also an important piece to kind of consider as well. And so Madeline mentioned a couple of the different causes, and so there's female factor infertility, there's male factor infertility. So there's causes or problems that can happen with the woman, there's things that can happen with the man, and sometimes it's both. Sometimes there's couples when both partners have something that's causing them not to be able to get pregnant. And then there's also another piece where they just don't know why. It's unexplained. They can't figure it out. They don't test, and they don't know. And that's also, it's actually pretty common too. I've seen statistics that are anywhere from 10 to 30% of infertility is unknown.
Right.
So,
So what do you mentioned about being in a room with a lot of people, and that probably at least a couple of the people are in there. Well, how do you find out, or how can you feel, how do we encourage people to be comfortable seeking out help, or just talking in conversation? Because sometimes you try to deal with this all by yourself because you don't want anybody to think that I can't have a baby. And so you don't say anything, but you're in the back of your mind is you're crying, help, help, help. So what do you say to these people?
well, there's definitely a lot of social and cultural influences in how much people talk about it or how much they don't talk about it. And so I definitely encourage people to talk to their family and talk to their friends about their experience. Because again, chances are somebody around you has gone through the similar experience that you are going through.
Yeah.
So,
And I bet that they're more than willing to share.
oh, absolutely.
More than
Absolutely.
willing.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of them trying not to invade your privacy.
Right.
But you thinking the same thing, I don't want anybody to know. So it sounds like we just need to get beyond that and reach out and let people know, I just need, if you can't help me, but at least let me talk to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes I think also you might be thinking, well, if they haven't experienced it, would they really understand, or would they, sometimes people, because they haven't gone through it, might say hurtful things, and you don't want to hear that. So, from my personal experience, I think what I ended up doing was speaking first to my healthcare provider, and then trying to find groups that are specific for pregnancy loss or infertility, because there you're definitely going to find people that have experienced that and know exactly what you're going through. And then once you get to a more comfortable place, sometimes some time has passed and you feel more comfortable with the situation and what happened and what's been going on. That's when I started being more expressive about it to others who were around me and may not have known or gone through it. A lot of people, they don't mean to say these things that might be hurtful because they just don't know. So it's not, it's something, you don't take it the wrong way. You just try to educate them, and about your experience and what it's actually like. And then you become more comfortable sharing your story.
Yeah, and that's why we're here today. Hopefully we're educating and sharing.
Right.
So that's great. That's great. And because I agree with what you said, Madeline, because people will talk to people and say, you're not pregnant yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's time now, for you to get pregnant. It's time to hear the little pitter paddles of feet. And in the person's mind going, you just don't know how hard I've been trying and it hasn't happened.
Right.
So that brings me to another thought and about stress and the role it plays in all of this. And then we'll go back and talk a little bit about how you mentioned a little bit about the male part, because sometimes it's all thought about, looking at the woman first. She goes through all this. Maybe let's talk about that first before we go to stress. So we mentioned before, the different things that about going to your care provider to talk to them, have that conversation. So is that a point in time where your spouse or your partner should go with you at that time, or how relevant is that?
Yeah, I would say probably most likely it's usually the female that goes to the provider first, and then once those tests, and they'll do blood tests and sometimes ultrasounds and things like that to check things, and then if nothing comes up or maybe something does, sometimes they'll still go ahead and check the partner anyway, just to be sure, because like I said, sometimes it's both, a lot of the times it's both, and so they'll go ahead and check both partners.
Okay. So, but most of the time, the lady probably will go first just to get started.
I would say typically, but
yeah, but not always.
Not necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. So now, so the man has just as much factor in this as the female does, and it's a team working together for hopefully the same outcome, is to be pregnant. So that means that they have to work together to get through this and support each other. So now the part of stress, even in the part of thinking and planning, to actually in the middle of the process. So how does that work?
Well, stress is a really interesting piece because this is partly what I study is infertility related stress. And when you look at the literature on stress, does stress cause infertility, or is there stress within the infertility experience? And the jury's still out. So there's studies that say that yes, it can cause infertility, and then there's studies that say that they don't. So again, and this has been looked at for years, and we're still really unsure which is first. We do know that the infertility experience is very stressful. There's personal stress related to that. There's social stress related to it. Financial stress related to that with infertility treatments. The cost can be very expensive. Occupational stress because you have to get off work sometimes to go get these treatments done, to go get monitoring done, to go get blood work done. And so all of those things really do impact the experience and will eventually impact how you cope and the quality of life that you're living. And so it is a big thing for sure within that experience. It can lead to anxiety, depression, PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. So
especially if it's not even your first time going through a round of treatments, if it's your second or third. I mean, it just continues to spike every time, I imagine.
Yes, and the duration of infertility, the longer that you go through the experience, sometimes that has a lot to do with the stress that you are having in and of itself.
So when you say the duration, is that the process of the procedures or the tests that you're doing, or
it can be sure, yeah, just how long that you have infertility, how long you've been trying to get pregnant.
Oh, okay. Does things and I know I don't say it's myths because we just talked about stress. I believe that is true, but in the process of trying to get pregnant, are there things that ladies and couples can do to facilitate that factor of the possibility of having a positive experience?
Well, there's things that you can do when you're just trying to get pregnant. So Dr. Fernandez mentioned a couple. You can also, there's ovulation predictor kits that are readily available over the counter. And so what those do is measure a certain amount of hormone in your urine to help you determine when you're going to ovulate or when those eggs are going to be released from the ovaries. So those are mostly pretty cheap. You can get those over the counter. Those are very helpful. There are other ways you can do basal body temperatures and take a temperature every morning, write it down. That's another way. But again, when you're talking about you've been trying for a while and you need to go see your provider and go have those conversations. And a lot of times it will start with your OBGYN provider. And they can do infertility treatments.
Okay.
Yeah, so they can do medications like pills that can help with ovulation. They can do, some of them will do injectables. So those are like little shots that some women can give themselves to help in the ovulation. They can also test the men.
Okay.
So they can do that there too. Sometimes they can do the intrauterine inseminations in the OBGYN offices. Unfortunately, here in Eastern North Carolina, we do not have an IVF clinic. So that is the in vitro fertilization. That's that more advanced type of infertility treatment.
Okay.
The closest one around here is in Raleigh, unfortunately. But most of the local OBGYNs here in Eastern North Carolina will do those, what we would call non-assisted reproductive technology treatments. So the medications, the pills, the monitoring with the blood work and the ultrasounds and those things can be done with your provider.
Right in the time. And I can imagine your mindset has to be ready for this. You have to mentally be prepared to start this process and to go through this, because just listening to you talk, that you have to be diligent when you start this process.
Yes, this could take weeks to months each. It depends also on the type of treatment, but just let's say you're doing the most simple one, help you with ovulation. It's a 5-day. You take a pill every day for 5 days, and then that should get you ovulating. But then after that, you have to have the insemination part, which is basically injecting the male sperm into. Well, it have several options, but it could be directly into the vagina or into the uterus. And then that's kind of just a waiting game after that. If you do another process, a different type of treatment, then it's a little bit more different injections and different things like that. But I just want to mention real quick to kind of put this more into perspective. For people that are trying to get pregnant on their own, you only have really a 20% chance of getting pregnant every month, and that's with people, male, female, both partners being have normal fertility. So it's not even that high to begin with.
So that's just a regular person
That's a
who just haven't had any thoughts about anything. Just, oh my
Right.
goodness, okay.
It's not like so that's why it does take a while, even with you being totally healthy. So I don't want anyone to be like, okay, it has been 3 or 4 months and still nothing. I might be infertile. It will take a while, but that's where those fertility or ovulation kits that come in handy.
Okay.
If you can really know when you're ovulating, it's good to have intercourse every 2 days during that week, and that should increase your chances.
Okay, that's good to know. Because you could be so easily, you're right, to say, well, I've been trying, but if you're not trying at that particular time,
Right.
then
You just bad timing.
yeah, or he's just enjoying intercourse.
Uh-huh.
But that is, that's good. That's
Mhm.
good, to think about and to focus in on. So what would you share with couples or people that was, thinking about, in the process or feeling that they may have infertility right now? So what would
Support each
you?
other, I would say, is the biggest key, because you only can count on those that are nearby you. You need to build that support system and make sure that they're there for you, and vice versa, because a lot of times we do focus on the woman who's really the one getting all these medications or treatments and things like that. But the males or partners, in this case, it doesn't have to be a male, the partner will be suffering just as much. They may be trying to put up a strong front to support the other person going through the treatment process, but they're also suffering in their own way. So definitely being there for each other, and as healthcare providers, we need to acknowledge both individuals that are going through the process.
Okay.
Yeah, and not avoiding the experience, because it's such an easy thing to do, is do all these avoidance coping behaviors. And we do know that those things are not productive in helping with stress.
So when you say avoiding, what do you mean?
Just not dealing with the infertility, not talking about it, not thinking about it.
People just to bury themselves in work.
Yeah.
Okay.
To take their mind off of it.
Yeah, avoiding being around children or being around other pregnant women even. And so, acknowledging your pain and your suffering, and acknowledging those feelings that you have, and self-care is important. Find those hobbies that you really enjoy that could be a good outlet for you. Definitely talking to people. There's lots of support groups on Facebook. So, a lot of them, you would be really surprised how many that there really are out there and available for people. There's also support groups. Sometimes you check with the OB-GYN clinics, because sometimes there are some that are housed there. And I've seen some in churches as well.
Yeah.
So there's definitely options and outlets. And again, there's so many people that are having the experience that,
There's group therapy. You can do it individual. You can go with your, couples, therapy groups. So it just depends on how you want to go about it. But there are options.
Yeah, counseling is very effective as well. And it's again, another good studied intervention for women with infertility, that it's very helpful. Counseling sessions. There's also yoga. Fertility,
Okay.
acupuncture, another really good one.
Meditation,
Mind body.
breathing exercises, things like that you can do to help lower your stress, because that's going to help in all parts of your life, really.
Yeah, not just the pregnancy part. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. We're right at the almost three minutes. So, Allison, do you want to share a little bit about your personal experience, maybe that may be helpful, just a tad bit or something out of the whole process? Do you feel like sharing, or or if it's not fair to just take a little piece of without being able to tell the whole thing?
Yeah, well, I had, in all the times that I got pregnant, I was under infertility treatments. And so the first time it took me about 2 years to get pregnant. Before my first child, I had 3 miscarriages before he was born. And then the second time, very similar, not as long because we knew exactly what treatment to do at that point. But I did have a miscarriage before I had my next children. So 4 total. And so I have that experience as well, having pregnancy loss during infertility and infertility treatments. So, and that's some of the research that I do as well. But it's definitely, again, it's everybody, I think, that goes through it. There's a lot of uncertainty in the experience, which adds to the stress because you don't know when you're going to get pregnant. You don't know sometimes if you're going to be able to carry the pregnancy. And so there's just a lot of waiting and a lot of uncertainty in it. And it definitely adds to the stress of the whole experience. So,
okay. Well, I would just like to add that you have 3 lovely, lovely little people now that I've gotten to know over the past years, and they are such a blessing.
Yes, and I will say that, again, most people will get pregnant. I mean, 75% of people that enter infertility treatments will get pregnant. It does take about 1.5 years, though. That's the average time to get pregnant with treatment. And obviously there's some that don't, but chances are good if you just go to your healthcare provider and ask those questions,
That is great. And we're out of time, but you know what? I think this will be a great 2-parter. That you guys have started some really, really major conversation. And I would love to have you, if you would consider coming back and maybe talk a little bit about pregnancy loss and just the process of how all of this goes and what you need to do as far as you move through the process. So hopefully I can convince you guys to come back and we can talk a little bit more in detail about that. But I do want to say thank you so much, Dr. Swift and Dr. Hernandez, for coming to be with me on today on Family Health Matters. And again, we're here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. And I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers. And we're live here today on Awesome Radio. It's still live. Thank you, Facebook fans, for joining us on today.
Thank you.